we're giving you an NWL game next between first place Michael Fagen and second place Jackson Smylie. We're going to cut to Scrabble action before I get myself in trouble now. So Fagen and Jackson seated at the board in what could be an all but clinching game for Michael. We can see the players have sat down, two guys very familiar with each other's games. Jackson will get to play first, an advantage he's happy to have in this pivotal game to decide this division. And he's found a blank on the first turn, which is going to be nice for him. Although the material he needed to get a bingo with this EGF HKT blank. And Jackson, I think, gonna play Kef or Keg out of this rack, but I'm not sure. That GHT synergizes fairly well together if you want to make a play like Kef, but the G is also a pretty terrible tile, so makes some sense to play Keg here as well. Another option, KHET, holds the dreadful FG combination. So, Charles, what do you think to do here? What are you looking if you're Jackson?
My first thought is how can I get rid of as many consonants as possible? A play like ket, K-E-T does achieve that aim, but as you point out, Matt, the F and the G do not play nicely with each other. You don't want to keep them together if you can avoid it. Meanwhile, GHT has an above average amount of synergy. So you play one fewer consonant, but the consonants you keep are likely to work well together. So I feel like Kef is clearly correct for Jackson here. Michael comes right back with Obi, which also seems to be, I shouldn't say unambiguously correct, but that's a very strong play as well, very straightforward play to unduplicate the O and the I while also scoring decently.
So Obi the play, but it is going to set up Jackson for his highest scoring bingo of knots. You can see he's already got it set up, and it'll play making Kefs and Obit. So it looks like it might have been a blocking play, but it actually just allows Jackson to play his bingo for 6 more points. That'll be 86, and the highest scoring bingo for Jackson by 16 points on that turn. So knots coming down for Jackson. 86 points, and he couldn't have asked for a better start to this game if he wanted. He is now ahead 106 to 24, but Michael has pulled rather well and will look to respond. He's pulled bingos of his own. He can play through the G or through the A.
Yeah, we would expect Michael to find one of these bingos available to him. They're both relatively high probability and should be straightforward. I will note that we did see a successful handshake get pulled off at the beginning of this game, which was not the case in the previous game. So maybe that's an omen, a good omen for a tight, close, and well-played game.
Perhaps so. Perhaps it is a good omen. Scrabble players notoriously lacking in dexterity. It is hard to get their hands to connect, as we are just so coordinated across the board. But Jackson and Michael gritted it out and were able to shake their hands. Several Rogering, Gorgerin, Reorging, all valid words that I see through the G, and Orangier also plays through the A. So Orangier, a word Michael 100% knows. The bingos through the G, maybe, but maybe not. Although we see Michael taking the conservative option here. They all score the same, but in terms of defense, this is easily the worst option of his 4 playable bingos. Jackson going to be happy to get this gift. As Orangier comes down from Michael, he's responded now with his own bingo. He still trails by 12, and it is Jackson's turn. AAEFSUW, the pull for Jackson. And man, when I see all that stuff get exposed, triple words, double letters next to him, I want to crush him. I want to crush him. And Jackson's not going to be able to crush him here. Really no compelling options for him. AWA plays to the left side of Orangier, making AI WE and AR. That's pretty terrible. You get overlapped a lot for a lot of points after that. He can play Wage through the G in Orangier, keep both of those big spots available. But the AFSU leave is not particularly enticing. He just doesn't have a good way to punish any of the stuff that Michael has opened up on this poll, and he's got to be feeling a little bit frustrated by that. Charles, how would you approach this turn?
I would. This is probably what Jackson is doing now. Even though no plays jump out on either the O or the R of Orangier, I would just spend a little bit of time thinking about it because those are really the spots you'd want to play. Playing off either the W or the F, hopefully scoring like 36 or something. We know from our access to Quackle that such a play doesn't exist. And then the question would become, do I want to leave both of those spots open? The thought there would be leave both of them open. Michael takes one of them next turn. You get the other one on your own next turn. Or try to take the one that you feel is more dangerous. In this case, that it would certainly be the R at the bottom of the board. Play something like Ware, just WARE. And yeah, you're getting rid of your E. You're not keeping really bingo prone tiles, but you are addressing the most dangerous spot on the board. So that's probably some of the things that are going through Jackson's mind. Of course, we know he's an extremely high level player, and there's probably 500 different things going on through his mind on any given turn.
So these are situations where Quackle is rather helpful. Quackle, the simulation tool, not always awesome for Scrabble analysis. It's a great tool, but it has many holes in its game. One of the biggest, most notable ones is that it can't really make inferences based on what your opponent has done. So Quackle really best and most accurate when your opponent has just bingoed and has 7 random tiles instead of has been grooming their rack for a while. And a Quackle analysis says, you know what, just play AWA on the left side of Orangier anyway. Yeah, it looks scary and it opens up spots, but the sim seems to like that play about 5 points more than what Jackson chose to do there. In any case, Jackson plays it. Michael has Salty and a Q, SALTIEQ, and he quickly sheds QAT on his last turn, which I think makes perfect sense. No other good options there. And we are back on Jackson's turn. AFJOSUZ, the rack for him. And had he played Awa last turn, he'd have Zarf right through it. But alas, he did not. He played Ware, and now he's going to have tougher options to think about.
Yeah, again, he's got some scoring letters, and he's got to think about, how can I use these scoring letters for their maximum potential. Now that both triples are open, he does have something, or sorry, both triples have been blocked. Options are a little bit more limited here, but he does have something like Juga through the G of Orangier, keeping the Z always a nice tile. Gets rid of the clunky J and U and scores. That'd be 40 points. So I think a straightforward play here. Nothing else really stands out to me as a play worth making, and so not necessary to spend a ton of time on that turn.
Quackle has the second best play there as Jugs in the same spot. And it's like, well, if I can keep the S and play the A instead, I'm going to do that. So Juga, easily the best play for Jackson, and he's not going to spend any more time thinking about it. He's identified the same thing. So back to Michael, who has pulled some garbage. He was so close to a bingo. AEILSTQ was his rack last turn. He plays off 3 tiles. You don't like breaking up those racks. You'd love to plunk QI and keep Salty, but he had to score points, and he's drawn some Drek afterwards. So he went from good to bad very quickly, picking up DUI. And I think we just see Michael play off DUI right after he's pulled them. He can play DUI and QI, or he can play DUI and Quid if he wants to play some aggressive offense. But I kind of like that play of Quid. You set up the E and the S in front of it. Maybe you get a bingo that scores 100 next turn. You open a double-double line as well. If you're sitting on the good stuff, and Jackson's last couple plays don't indicate that he's got good stuff, Quid is a really cool board opening play to try to capitalize on the good rack you have and the bad one your opponent seems to have.
Yeah, I think your analysis on this one is spot on, Matt. Given the score and what Michael can infer about Jackson's letters, Quid is clearly going to outperform Dewey. Um, if you peg Jackson for just having sort of clunky high scoring tiles, the double letter, double word score combo that you open after Dewey is actually probably the most dangerous thing you could do. Whereas Quid does not really give back anything to somebody who has clunky high scoring letters. And it perfectly plays into the leave of EILS, giving him multiple opportunities to get a high scoring bingo. So Quid here looks to be a very strong play.
A sim has these two plays neck and neck, nearly identical, but once again, the limitation of Quackle is it can't make inferences. Jackson has just played AEW and then AJU. To me, those are plays Jackson has to make out of almost any rack, and don't tell me he's sitting on like an EIST or AELR or anything like that. So I think you capitalize on the advantage. Michael very wisely thinks the same thing. I love this decision by Michael, and we'll see if he's rewarded with a good draw into this very bingo prone EILS. And he is.
Oh, that works out really well for him. That's a double double if it doesn't get blocked.
Yeah, so if you're Jackson, I think the other spot, that the first column looks to be the more scary of the two things that was opened up, but Michael's pulled the double double instead. What an awesome decision by Michael, and just wonderful that he is rewarded for it. You know, sometimes you make these great calls and you just don't pull the stuff to punish it, but you know, sometimes there is justice in Scrabble after all. Good decision by Michael. Good drop by Mike. A lot of points for Michael next turn.
Yep, that should get him right back in this game. Although, if Jackson scores well this turn, it will be, it won't be quite even, but it won't be home free for Michael by any sense of the term.
So Jackson had two decision or a big decision between two plays to make there. Zen is 48. He could play few in the same spot and retain that Z. And I think Jackson was trying to figure out, am I going to be able to cash this Z with squid plays after FEW? I'm holding ZINOS. I don't really see anything I can draw that make words forming squid that are worth it. You know, I'd have to have a two tile pull that helps me form a word. So I think because of that, he foregoes it and just cashes it now, scores the points, and says maybe this F or this W will help me hit that spot later. Michael has drawn into Obelise, Obelise, plays for 92 as a double double. And the fact that he hasn't played it yet makes me think he either hasn't seen it or he's not sure this is good. And those ISE versus IZE suffixes, especially in NWL, are so aggravating. So aggravating. People mix these up all the time. It is an obnoxious list to try to memorize, but Obelize does take the ISE spelling. And Michael, I don't think, has seen it yet. There's nothing else to think about here if he does.
So I think Matt, he briefly when he drew it, he had it set up. So he I think he immediately saw it, and now I'm wondering if he's just unsure of it. Either that or it was sort of the randomness of how you pull your tiles onto your rack. But I'm pretty sure he deliberately set it up, and now he's pondering. So that causes some concern here in the commentary booth.
Perhaps he's just looking for a nutso double double through the DG. Perhaps he's looking for an anagram to try to take advantage of the equid or squid spot. But this to me is very surprising that a player of Michael's caliber hasn't played Obelize yet. This is high probability enough. He's certainly studied it, and I'm surprised he's not confident on it.
Yeah, if he decides to forego it, he can play something like Be Lies, making squid. Clearly inferior to the bingo by a significant margin, but still a pretty decent play. But we really hope he spots the bingo here.
Well, if you want more NWL today, you want Jackson to win this game and make the division very interesting. If you want CSW, you want Michael to play the bingo here and draw three more in a row. It's 3 minutes now on this turn for Michael, where one play is head and shoulders above the rest. The valuation on Obalize, 92 points, as it's a 92-point bingo. The valuation on Belize, 37 points. So Michael would be losing a lot of valuation, over 50 points worth, if he misses the bingo here.
And it looks like he also might be thinking of just playing Biles, making quids. He has that set up, which would be inferior to Belize as well, not to mention the bingo. So we'll see what he does here. He's got a couple tiles in his hand, but that could just be him shuffling.
He's set up Belize now, which I think is one of the two best non-bingo plays. And yes, Michael has missed the bingo. So everything I said, brilliant play, and he got rewarded in the right way. I take all of that back now. It was still a good play, but you've got to find Obalize if you're going to make that. This is a mistake I see a lot of intermediate players make a lot. They play as if they know all the bingos. They keep these great bingo-prone leaves, but then they don't know all the bingos, and they draw the bingo, and then they miss it. And missing a bingo out of a bunch of one-pointers is terrible because you're scoring 12 or 14. So anyway, big tangent, but Michael has missed the double-double Obalize for 92, and that is very painful for him.
Yeah, and I think the worst thing is he had set it up, so he was possibly stream anxiety also playing a part. Does not want to play a high probability phony on stream. My thinking is when I'm on stream, one, I don't want to play a phony of any sort, especially high probability. But two, I also don't want to pass up a high probability bingo that I should know. So it kind of gets in your head a little bit. You know, people are watching. They're sort of judging your word knowledge based on what you're doing, and you want to make the right play. And that extra layer of discomfort, so to speak, can mess with your decision making.
Michael, though, no stranger to stream jitters or stream anxiety, as he won a North American championship and was on stream for nearly all of it. Michael, for those less familiar with the story, was one of the lowest rated players in the field, and people kept expecting, okay, he's going to lose, right? He's going to lose, right? And he never did, and he played very well and ended up winning the entire event. So he's played on stream extensively, and it is hard to play on stream. Jitters are very real, but he should have outgrown those by now. I think that was just a miss.
Yeah, I think just missed it or was not quite sure of it. Jackson makes maybe a sort of prescient play here, blocking a lucrative X spot next to Belize. Michael still does have some okay X plays, but nothing on the level of just dropping the OX next to the BE of Belize.
Michael can still score 50 this turn, but he has to blow up this rack to do so. Oxides and squids is 50 points somehow. I've had to count it like 6 times because I don't believe that that's 50 points, but it is. Michael instead, though, going to opt to play XI here, which I think is absolutely fine. DEOST is a great leave, but if Michael draws a bingo here, he's got to spot it. No time to keep missing bingos if you're Michael.
And
CIOSBW, the pull for Jackson, and he has one great option here. Stope, STOWP, plays through the TO, 42. He does shed the S, but the S is not all that powerful on this board, as OK does not take the back S. And Jackson's already got it set up. I'm sure he's not going to find anything better. And Stope for 42 going to come down here. That'll put Jackson ahead 286 to 217, though Michael has pulled a nice rack once again. Daughters, the pull, DOTTERS. Daughters is valid, and it plays in one spot, making DID in the 4th row on this board. So Michael, once again, sets up his bingo immediately. This is another one where it's like, am I making this up? This has to be a word, right? But what is a daughter? This is good, right? So stream jitters may be a factor here once again, but Michael has to play daughters, right? Michael's not going to miss daughters.
Yeah, it looks like he's getting ready to play it. I agree, Matt. It's sort of a weird word, those ERS words. Some and one is valid. Who cares what it means? We're Scrabble players. We don't necessarily care. And he does find the bingo to get himself right back into this game.
There are so many of these ERS words. I think Michael's on hold. Ooh. I know Jackson's got to make the call. Oh God. Michael's on hold.
Yeah, and whenever I get put on hold, it doesn't matter who's holding me. I immediately have this like wave of self doubt, like, oh, I probably phonied. Why did I play a phony? This person knows what they're doing, and I'm a complete moron. More often than not, I'm correct in those on those words. I'm not the one who's made the mistake. It's the person holding and challenging. But still, when you hear that hold, you're like, boy, did I just really screw up this game. And it turns out no, doubters is valid. Jackson correctly determines that it's valid, and Michael's drawing his tiles.
It could be courtesy draws,
Oh,
but
that's a
these
very,
are
very good point.
Michael's pulled Amirates to AMIRATES through the R, so that is a great post bingo draw. Jackson could play Viceroy to block it, except it doesn't quite fit.
And I was thinking last turn eco waves. He just needed another tile randomly on the board to make it work. So he's got a couple nice words here that don't quite make it on. And if you're Jackson here, you're looking the V and the Y combination is not one that you want to keep around for too much longer. You might do something like IV just to play off letters, but that keeps too many vowels. So maybe you look to play off more tiles here.
Jackson has one play that I really like in this situation. It is revoice, plays from the R, and just thwarts this board, makes it very close. Now Jackson is only up by a narrow margin. Oh boy, we've got a different score. I've got Jackson at 286 to 281 for Michael after daughters. But whatever the score is, Jackson with a narrow lead, either 4 or 5 points. Revoice would score 22, put him up by 26. But it is Michael's turn, so that's a roughly neutral game. At the same time, though, after Revoice, it is so hard to score points effectively. Maybe you get one or two more high-scoring plays, and that's it. So that seems like an awesome option if Jackson looks to play defense. If he wants to play a little bit more offense, like he's got set up, Evite, Evite, plays through the T and daughters, holds COY, which is not going to bingo, but it is going to score quite well. The problem with the play like Evite, though, I feel like it makes this game a bingo or die situation, and whoever bingos next wins. There's one unseen blank to Jackson. Michael's just drawn 7 tiles. I don't know that I like getting into a bingo or die situation, holding COY when my opponent might have a blank on their rack. I think we tighten things up. I think we play Revoice and we go into an endgame situation if at all possible. I love this play from Jackson as he agrees with everything I just said.
Yeah, and I think another nice thing about Revoice is it keeps just the Y, which you're thinking, why does the Y mean much at all? Very likely that you draw a 5-letter play through the T and daughters. That makes it worth your while to open up that spot, basically. Like if you can draw a 36-point play ending in TY in that spot, that's going to be great for him. Otherwise, doesn't need to go that route and make Michael figure out what to do with this board.
And this is one area where I see Scrabble players struggle a lot, especially Division 1 players. This board is completely dead to bingos now. It is nearly impossible to play a bingo on this board. And in these situations, you have to completely adjust every heuristic you've ever learned, because no longer does it matter at all if you're keeping bingo prone tiles. What good are they? Maybe your opponent will open a line for you, but if they don't and you keep fishing, you're just going to lose. Yeah, sure, you'll have Stainer on your last rack, and then you won't play it anywhere, and then you'll lose. Scoring becomes so important in these situations, and the Y is a great way for Jackson to do that. So if there's any tile you could keep after a play like Revoice, the Y's got to be up there on that list. Jackson's also found the second blank in this game, and that's going to be helpful for him scoring and ensuring Michael doesn't hit a Hail Mary bingo if a line gets opened up later. So this will be a good one, folks. I love this play of revoice, and I love the drama that it's going to bring up. Michael has a very hard turn here now as he's got these bingo prone tiles. And as I said, you can't get caught up trying to bingo in these situations. Or if you are looking to bingo, you've got to keep opening the board and opening lines to try to do that. So a play like AIM does a little bit of everything for Michael. AIM just above daughters, making at, it, and me. It sets up front hooks for the ME, but Michael holds on to an E, so that is a line that he can play in. It scores reasonably well, holds bingo prone tiles. If you're creating a new line, I guess that's a reasonable thing to do. If he chooses to keep things tight as well, maybe he feels he's at the advantage in this game holding on to that S. He could also just play something like Page, just dropping AE, but I think aim definitely the thing Michael should do in this situation. Michael agrees.
So he did have a me set up, AMI, probably playing on top of daughters, making AS, and that actually would be a kind of a creative board forking play because AMI takes an E, it also takes an S, takes a few other letters as well, sets up a bingo spot there, and not to mention the spot above AS. Unfortunately, the spot above AS, you can't put an S there, you can't put an E there. So that bingo line would be a little bit less dangerous, but that would have also been a creative play as well. But he does decide to go for the points and just set up a single bingo line for himself.
Yeah, it's a cool play, but it could get absolutely crushed. If your opponent plays like a 5-letter stack on top, you've just immediately lost the game. Just like everybody in chat, you have lost the game. Got to get it in once a tournament.
Oh, I used to play that game in high school, really dating myself now.
As did I, and now we are losers of it once again. Jackson needs to figure out how to address this new threat on the board. He knows Michael's not trying to set up a bingo with the blank as he's just pulled it. Got to be some peace of mind, but there are still several bingo prone tiles unseen to Jackson. 9 unseen, 22 in the bag, so just a little bit too much for us to show you unseen pool. But Jackson's got to figure out what he wants to do about this threat and about this board in general. I'm not seeing good ways. Did they take out GYP, or is that still valid?
That is still valid, sort of surprisingly, but that is still in, and it means what you think it means.
Okay, so GYP and PAT is a play that he could make, but that sets up the big SPAT front hook with one unseen S to Jackson. That's one he can think about. It'll score well, hold well. CAN blank is a nice leave, but I don't think that's a level of variance Jackson wants in this game. He's got a slight lead. It's his turn. He's got the blank. We don't want variance. We don't want coin flips. We're in the driver's seat. Let's just grind this one out and take a 10 or 20 point victory. So I think that's how Jackson's looking to approach this. He has one sneaky good play. If he just wants to keep the board tight, he can play Icy from the eye and Orangier, making Acne. It doesn't score particularly well, but AGNP blank is a decent leave. Only one eye for him to draw, so maybe something to think about there. I'm trying to find other ways he can block that spot on top of aim. He could play Yang, YANG, making Gat on top. Gat has no front hooks, so barring a bingo starting in an E, he's addressed all bingo lines on this board once again. I think that might be a decent play. It only holds 14, holds PC together with his blank, but those are scoring tiles. Scoring tiles might be what he's looking to keep. I'll also point out one huge tile in this game is one that there are 3 remaining unseen of, and neither player has one. It is an L to make the Jugal hook down at the bottom. So an L will be big to help either open or score, depending on who draws it. Lots to think about here.
Yeah, definitely the L. It seems minor, really. It's not going to score a ton of points, but playing something down from the G of knots, like just a 3-tile play, it does sort of open that corner of the board back up to bingos, at least eventually. Like you make a play there, you make one more play, and all of a sudden there's spots down there to bingo. So, it depends on which player decides how badly they want to bingo. At this point, Jackson, it's hard to read what AIM actually meant. He might not have Michael pegged for bingo letters. And Michael also might not have Jackson pegged for bingo letters. After Revoice and Yang, it just seems like sort of random plays.
So AYE going to come down here right away for Michael. This is certainly the equity play. Score 20 points, hold ENST. You got to remember, ENST is not taking you anywhere on this board, but neither are the rest of these tiles. They don't score almost anything. So I think Michael still just got to put some scoring pressure on. I've got a tie game right now after AYE at 322 to 322. If I missed something, I guess I missed something, but I show tie game as Michael's pulled into ansated with no spot. And we're back on Jackson's turn now. CDNOPU blank on Jackson's rack, and he's probably going to take some time on this turn. He knows the importance of his decision here.
Yeah, just looking at this board, I actually don't see anything good that keeps the board shut. They're running out of available spots to play, sort of on the left and the top of the board where they've been making most of their plays. There's not many places to put down letters anymore, so Jackson has to be careful that the play he chooses doesn't create, unnecessary openings that are hard to deal with. Then again, he does have the blank, so if he plays like DUP, making revoiced, something like that, sets up the S. I mean, even if Michael hits there, hopefully Jackson would be hitting back. The blank gives him a lot of flexibility to sort of play the way he wants to play.
I'm trying to see what Jackson can do with the revoiced hook without setting up a hook. I see a play like Udo makes some sense, UDO, because it takes the back in, but it also takes a back S. And, I don't know if Jackson's ready to open up that level of variance. We have a tie game. Jackson's turn. Jackson's got the blank. He's probably 60 or 70% to win. It looks like he's looking at Doc. Doc would just take the back S or a K if he wants to use the blank for that. I think that's a better version. I'd love to find a word here if I'm Jackson that has no hooks or has a hook that only I have, but I don't see any words on his rack that'll do that. So this is a very challenging turn for Jackson. My gut almost says just play something crazy like HUP, HUP for 8, just keep the board tight, but it is a tie game. You can't score 8. You need some points now to keep the scoring pressure on, and you don't want to see it a bingo if at all possible. As it turns out, Michael's sitting on ansated, and any S hook Jackson opens up is going to get destroyed. Dup, the play Jackson chooses to make, takes both the S and an E, and now Michael will have to choose which placement of ansated he wants to put down. We might see a bingo and then a bingo back, depending on Jackson's pull here. Huge draw. The R helpful, another R not helpful, and the O, that'll be all right. He's got crooner and coroner on that rack and might bingo back. I think he will bingo back no matter which placement Michael chooses. So we're going to see a bingo, and then we're going to see another one after the play of Dup.
Yeah, it looks like, and that's what I was alluding to earlier, is at least Jackson has the benefit of, if he does get bingoed on, hopefully the bingo gives him a bingo in response. And then we're back to an even game. So even is not what you want to be ahead, but it's better than being down. So you just sort of go into the end game with a very tight score. And as commentators, we couldn't be happier. We haven't had a ton of close end games here on this stream.
Oh my goodness. So Michael has two choices, ansated and Dups for a bunch of points. That one scores 75, but opens huge bingo lines. Or he's got this option that he's putting down, ansated and dupe. This is a much better play. It scores way worse, but you don't want to get bingoed back on. This scores 67, will put Michael ahead by 41. You're going to win this game a lot unless your opponent bingos, but Jackson has an awesome play here. Do we see it?
So his bingos of crooner and coroner don't fit next to ansated.
That is where you're wrong. That is where you're wrong. Crooner fits with 6 overlaps.
Oh, wow. Oh, Duper, yeah. I was just thinking about it, that you run off the top of the board if you play next to the A, just putting the AR there. but put the other R there, the first R of crooner, and it still does play. So yeah, hopefully I would see that in a game situation and not say the first thing that's pops into my head like I'm doing on this commentary. Uh, I think that's a straightforward find for Jackson. He's going to be double checking, where does this bingo play and not play, and I think he'll come to the realization that it does play making six overlaps.
The other choice Jackson has to make, should he see this, and I bet he will, is do I play it? There are 5 tiles in the bag right now. Does this put me ahead by enough that I'll win this in game? Crooner will put Jackson ahead 427 to 389. And he has found it, the filthy overlap. Let's watch Michael's face. Oh, we cut away for a minute. But that can't feel good. You feel like you've made this nice defensive bingo and snuck out this game, and then you get hit with a 6 overlap. That's going to be a fun post-mortem there for sure. So Jackson does drop the bingo. He's going to pull the last 5 tiles out of the bag, and they are going to be EEHLO. He is going to cede points back. The play of Crooner allows Michael to play something like MIL and SOM and those other overlaps. But Michael, I don't see any out in 2 sequence with the rack this bad. And it looks like Michael with the bingo, Jackson with the counter bingo, Michael with a bad pull, and Jackson with a reasonably balanced one. Jackson going to go on and narrowly escape with this game.
And it looks like we were just talking about the L's earlier as possibly being important for Jugal. It took them a while to tumble out of the bag here, and it might not matter too much what goes on with the L's.
Yeah, Michael's going to use the rest of his clock here. If he can go out in 2, he might yet be able to make this reasonable, but his rack is just so bad. I don't think it's in the cards for him. If I'm Michael too, like I would have held the last play, and even if I'm 98% sure, I'm going to do the math here. If I realize I'm dead, I'm going to challenge duper. It's probably a word,
I
but
mean, he could still be holding. Like in a last turn scenario, you get your courtesy tiles pretty quickly. And I mean, I've had games where I just hold for the rest of my clock. I just keep the challenge available to me until I make my play. And so it's quite possible that Jackson is on the indefinite hold here.
yeah, I do this all the time as well. Like Michael's got to think a little bit more about things, though. He has to think not just about winning this game, but also the spread ramifications of a challenge at this point. Michael's ahead, nearly 400 spread points on the field, but taking a loss here, if he challenges and turns a 30-point loss into an 80-point loss, this tournament got very interesting. So Michael's got a lot to think about here. How certain is he on duper? How much does spread matter to him versus, if you knock off Crooner, you win the game 100%, but that's duper's got to be a word, right? Super duper, unless it isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Michael's a top expert. He knows his 5-letter words, but they can slip out in inconvenient times, or you can just really not want a word to be a word. Sort of a desperation challenge can be called for in situations like this. Do I think it's called for here? No, I don't. I think he probably should just play this game out and conserve spread. But there are definitely situations where a word that's 98% good, you just take the challenge and hope there's that 2% chance that you're misremembering and that your opponent is also misremembering.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's made this mistake once where it is good, but loses if it's good, and you win for sure if you challenge it, but you're too proud or you don't want to lose a spread, and then you don't, and then it's no good, and you realize you blew the game because you didn't have the cojones to challenge that word. And then after that, your pride goes out the window. You're going to challenge anything if it costs you the game for a while. I don't know. The pride in Scrabble is wild sometimes, what people are and aren't willing to do. Some people have no shame and will challenge even the most common words if it costs them the game. Some people have way too much pride and won't challenge almost anything in any situation if they think it's a word. An extra level of complexity to a game that's already completely wild. Michael's going to do everything he can in this situation to try to find an out in two sequence, to try to find something exciting. But we know that there's nothing he can do, as Rack is just so inflexible. If he had found even one of those E's, this might be rather interesting, but he found no help in the bag at all. He doesn't have an E to play mover or Vomer. He's really just got no good sequences.
Yeah, it looked like he had Gil set up, making Jugal. That keeps MORV. He's thinking maybe that does something on the right side of the board. And it does. He can play like OM if it doesn't get blocked. But then that's still an out in three sequence, and that's probably still not going to be enough. But
Yeah,
maybe he
he's
tries
not.
something like that and hopes Jackson, bungles the end game in some way.
I would be shocked if Jackson bungles an endgame on this stage, especially one as straightforward as this. But hey, I've been shocked by a number of things that have happened already. We saw Daughters, which is very high prob, get held. We saw Obelize get missed. So we've seen a lot of stuff, and nothing surprises me anymore. I think priority one for Michael, if he's looking to optimize this end game, is you have to take away SOH from Jackson. SOH and HE alone is a devastating play, or SOH and OH and NOO. You don't want to let Jackson have either of those. So take away the triple word if you can. Has to be priority one, assuming you're not going to go out into. And I just don't see the out into sequence here for him.
Yeah, if he does something like OM and then Gil, he might get V stuck on this board. There's no open vowels to play through. No way to get rid of the V. So it actually just probably works out worse for him. He's got to be careful here, and he does take the highest scoring play. Um, he does have VAR as sort of an escape valve for the V, but this isn't going to be quite enough.
Yeah, Vomer also plays through the ME at the top, so he's got options to shed the V. He's not going to eat it here, but I'm sure this is not the outcome Michael wanted. Although, for those of you who believe in a sense of justice, I do feel Jackson played the better game here. The huge bingo miss of Obelize, double double natural on top of Squid for Michael ended up being the difference in this game.
Yeah, and Jackson had some creative board control plays in the middle of the game with Revoice and Yang, which worked out exactly as he wanted them to. Revoice digging into the bag to draw the blank, and then that gives him some, flexibility to counter bingo anything that happens from Michael's end. So, although we did really like Michael's play of Quid, it was a really high level strategic decision. But as Matt mentioned earlier, he got the tiles that he needed to sort of put the cap on that play, and didn't put the cap on it. So we see Jackson just go with Hod, his highest scoring play. That's pretty straightforward. I think that will give him, yeah, he has at least or Eel
He's
on top of Daughters to go out. So Michael's going to either have to play VAR or Vomer to get rid of the V, and the game will come to an end.
he's going to instead play LO, which is 1 point worse in terms of in-game valuation than Vomer, but at this point, 1 point not such a big deal. What a game. Back and forwards. Jackson opens the line, hoping Michael can't bingo. Michael does bingo, and then Jackson hits him back with a 6 overlap. Michael's got to feel okay knowing, hey, I was dead either way. If I play Ansated in the more aggressive spot, Jackson's still going to bingo on me for a lot of points. So I was going to get bingoed on no matter what I did, and I was going to lose probably no matter what I did. But at the same time, man, that's a bad beat. You play the defensive bingo, and I think Michael was right in choosing the defensive placement of Unsated and just got burned very, very hard with a low probability outcome. I bet Michael's probably at least 70% to win after Unsated and ended up losing anyway.
Yeah, kind of a tough break for him. We could see it sort of all unfold from our position, seeing both players' racks. So we could sort of see it coming, but from Michael's POV, sort of a bad break.
Yeah, it's always so much easier to play Scrabble in the commentators box too. You've got your anagrammer, you can look up hooks, you can run things through Quackle and find the nines and everything else. It is so much harder over the board with no tools at your disposal except your brain.
Yeah, and for some of us, the brain is not as good a tool as we wish it was.
I am certainly a part of that club. Shout out small brain gang, I guess. So Jackson's going to go out with Eel, catch 10 points on Michael's rack. I have a final of 474 to 439, so a narrow win for Jackson.